Y'all
Hi, everybody.
doing? Oh. What's up, homie? Yo, so good to see you guys. I am stoked to be here on my birthday. Everyone's like, oh, aren't you bummed like you have to work on your birthday? I was like, no, I love my job. This morning was a little hot, though. A little warm.
It was very hot.
A little warm. But, guys, so pumped to be here. It's our second week, so if this is your first week here, welcome. But this is a pretty intense month, as you can see on the screens. But we're having this whole conversation on mental health. You guys talk about school and everywhere you go, social media. So we're like, the church should be talking about this. So last week, Matt kicked it off, and this week we're talking about anxiety. And I was like, man, I'm going to need to, go talk to someone that, has anxiety. I was like, I don't. So I was like, hey, Maren, what are you doing on a Sunday? So can we welcome Maren to the stage? Yo, welcome. It sounds cheesy, but, it takes a lot of guts to get up here. But she loves this ministry so much. She loves you guys. She's one of our student influencers. But it takes a lot to get up here. So thank you for being here.
I love it. It's my favorite thing.
And then you got a little more anxious once you saw your mom and dad were here.
Yeah, that's a little scary. They're in the back, but it's
yeah.
fine.
But guys, if you're new here, I'm a pretty chill person. I'm pretty laid back. You can ask any of the key students here. You ask my wife, you ask Matt, any of my coworkers. So when Matt's like, hey, we got to move some weeks around, you're speaking on anxiety, I was like, that ain't gonna work, dude. That doesn't work. I'll go get someone to help me write a message on anxiety. But for me, when I'm told hey, you're gonna go speak on a topic, I hope that I've experienced that in some capacity. So I was like, hey, where in my life have I dealt with this? And I've been in student ministry now for almost 5 years, 6 years. So I've got to hang out with high schoolers the whole time, and it's been amazing. But, we all have got our own stuff to deal with, and mental health is a big one of those things. So, we need to talk about that. But I've been married for 1.5 years to my beautiful wife, Allie. She's a great person. She was here this morning. A lot of people got to meet her and see her. But she deals with anxiety on a way different level than hopefully I ever will. She has anxiety and OCD. You think OCD, and I always thought that in school, your water bottle had to be there, your paper here, your laptop here, and I even joked about it in school, and at that level, you can make jokes, but once I met my wife, and we've been together for 8 years, and so in high school, one of these things that I can think of is I had a big truck, we loved to go out to the desert till 4 a.m., middle of nowhere, don't have phone service. But she'd be like, hey, text me when you get back. She would, have these things and be telling me these things, compulsively. And I'm 16, 17-year-old Alec thinking, what did I get myself into with this girl? She's crazy. She wants to know where I'm at. Make sure, she's like, if you go, you're going to die. And then if you die like this, I was like, okay. Hopefully I don't die. And so this was the beginning of me learning, wow, there is a whole nother layer of anxious thoughts, anxiety, and then learning that it's in her family and her, and it comes from this obsessiveness of OCD, and it's a whole nother realm. But I'm only up here confident to sit here and talk with you guys because of those experiences, my experiences in student ministry. And I was like, this is a conversation that we need those experiences to speak truth to. So I was like, hey, Maren, you should come do this with me. And she's like, no. I was like, it wasn't really a question.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. So
it's okay.
We've been talking about this for a while. And, guys, this is a heavy topic. Maybe you or someone you know deals with this a lot. But do you want to read off, as we were kind of getting ready for this, one or two of the definitions of when people think anxiety, I want them to get a firm knowledge of what it is we're going to actually talk about.
Yeah, so something that people always kind of get confused is nervousness versus anxiety. They're similar, they're very, very similar, but there's definitely a difference. So here it is. So nervousness is a sensible reaction to a potentially scary situation, while anxiety is a physical component, and it feels like you're having a heart attack sometimes. You can feel nauseous, your heart's racing, you're really shaky, whatever, sweating, and it's an intense, overwhelming, sudden action or physical component that you're feeling. And it's not always fun. And so when people are like, oh, I'm nervous to take this test, like, there's a difference. Like, yeah, you can be nervous, and it's normal, and that's a thing that happens. But when you're anxious, you literally feel like you cannot physically take the test. Like, you sit there, and you're like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Another definition we have is nervous disorder characterized by a state of excessive uneasiness and apprehension, typically with compulsive behavior or panic attacks. So the compulsive behavior of like, no, like this has to happen, whatever. Those are situations and differences and definitions of anxiety.
Yeah, and even just thinking about this, I don't know about you guys, but one of the first times when I experienced it outside of me or my girlfriend, now my wife, is I was with a friend, and we all had hung out, and like everyone's like parting their own ways. And one of my friends, she's my age, goes into a full-blown panic attack. Mm-hmm. And I was scared, I was nervous, because if you're someone in here that doesn't deal with this, and you're in a moment like that, like you really don't understand and don't know. And so after that day, like I had conversations with her. I'm like, hey, like, what does that look like? And like, there were things that like I even had to apologize for saying or joking. And it's like, normally that would never have affected someone. But when you have these thoughts, like you don't even get to comprehend what's going on in their head. So yeah, that's a great way to look at this. So we're going to kind of go back and forth. Us telling Cap in the back, today's going to be like if a sermon and a Q&A had a baby. Like that's what today's kind of be. So one of the first questions I want to ask Maren is, what are some things in your life that give you anxiety?
I've just stopped.
Besides being up here.
Yeah, besides being up here. Well, I'm going to include that too. But one of the main things for me is like just simple opportunities that I'm given, such as going to school or going to church even, or Dawn's small group. I have always been super anxious about going, even though I know almost half the people there. I still don't like it because it's still new to me. It's not something that I'm used to. You can ask Nick. I would refuse to go with a lot of the times. But I love it. It's a good thing to go to. Another thing is like going on stage. I constantly tell myself the week before I'm preparing to even do like live welcome that I'm not good enough. I'm not like mature enough, or I'm not good enough to talk to students who are the same age as me. Like, oh, they won't want to listen to me because I'm the same age, so I'm not like important or whatever it is. And just simply not being strong enough, wise enough, cool enough, or outgoing enough. Like, I'm a quiet kid when it comes to where I'm not comfortable. I used to be really quiet. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and I still kind of do that every once in a while, especially at school. And so those are just things that I like I'm shaking right now because it's a little nervous to be up here. And also going to like into my future, I don't know what is going to happen. So I start to like obsess over these thoughts and what's going to happen and where I'm going to go to college and who I'm going to go to college with and who are my teachers going to be. Are they going to be nice? Like just these nonstop thoughts that are like surrounding my mind that I can't escape them. So.
Wow. No, that's really good because I think everyday topics of going to school, being on stage, doing whatever, for those of us that don't suffer and deal with this, it's stuff that you don't think of.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, I was thinking one of the first times, like, sometimes I get in these like weird moods and I'm like, oh, like, what's like the end of your life look like? And like death and heaven. And like, I'll start having this conversation with Allie, my wife, and she's like, please stop talking. Has like her mind and her heart just get anxious at 110 miles an hour. And I'm like, and the bad part of me was like, let's keep talking. But I'm like, okay, no, bad husband, stay away. Like, okay, new topic.
Yeah.
But it's those things of that with a certain group of people, we could talk for hours. But if I have that conversation with my wife, it scares her half to death. And yeah, we have to think of those things.
Yeah.
When in those things, what does anxiety make you feel like? So you said the things that give you anxiety, but what does that internally feel?
Anxiety makes me feel crazy. I literally feel like a crazy person because there are moments where I have panic attacks that I call them. These are my version of my panic attacks. What happens to me is everything around me is moving really, really fast, and my brain and my thoughts are going super, super slow, and I'm moving slow, and everything about me is moving slow. But, like, my friend may be, like, talking super fast, and I'm like, whoa, what are you saying? Or my thoughts are coming super slow, and I can't catch up to what's going on around me. And I never understood what that was. I never told anyone about it because I was like, no one else experiences this. No one else has ever talked about having these things. And so, like 6 months ago, I told one of my best friends, who I've known for like 10 years now, that I was experiencing it because it kept happening like the entire time she was visiting me. And I was like, hey, like this is going on. Can you help me understand what this is? And she was like, Maren, that's a panic attack. And so finally being able to like put an emotion or a feeling to it, or like an explanation, a definition to what I was feeling, made me feel a little bit more sane, and it like made sense because I realized that when I was a little kid, I would have it, and when I would have it, it was because the lights in the hallway were turned off and I was scared of the dark. So that feeling crazy, like a lot of people feel crazy because it's like, oh, no one else experiences this, or it's stupid, so I should just get over it, or I should ignore it, and I should not have to deal with it, whatever. But it's a real thing that people deal with. Another thing is that it feels like the devil's trying to attack me. And it feels like he's trying to get into my life and into my head about all these different things that's going on. Anxiety is not of God, it's of the devil, it's of the enemy. He's trying to like break you down so that you don't want to be a believer anymore because you're like, oh, well, it's not working, so I'm just going to leave the church, whatever it is. The enemy's just trying to get after you. And one of the verses that I found that kind of backs that up is 1 Peter 5:7. And it says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered in a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. So that's just something that like shows you that the devil is just a roaring lion, like walking around you in circles or doing whatever. Like he's trying to get to you so that you can't focus on your own self and focus on your life and your own well-being.
Yeah, this verse is, if you've been in church, you may have heard it a lot, but I mean, I've read this verse probably 100 different times, and I don't think verse 9's ever jumped out more than ever at me. And guys, just rereading that, verse 9 says, resist him standing firm in the faith, and this is the part that gets me, because you know that the family of believers, us as Christians, throughout the entire world, is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. I think that's got to be one of the most important things that, I mean, we have to share tonight.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, that we're not meant to do life alone at all. If you think that or have that been told in your head, like, I'm sorry, that's a lie. You're not meant to do this alone. This is your community. If you didn't know it, you do now. They say welcome home at the end of announcements, at the end of Live Welcome, not just as a catchy phrase. We don't have it on shirts just because. We believe in that firmly. That this is your family, the gathering of believers undergoing the same kind of sufferings. You need to know that. If this is something that you've maybe been doubting, or you're like, I don't know if I can tell anyone, I promise you. I mean, someone in this room, someone on the stage is experiencing the same kind of thing. So don't try to hide away from that. Don't try to walk away from that in any shape or form. That's where you truly, I think, find danger.
Yeah.
Because you can vouch this if you have anything to say, is if you felt isolation, or if you felt the devil creeping into your life, or through anxious thoughts, or dealing with anxiety, depression, like that's where the devil starts to dig in. Mm-hmm. The second the distraction, the isolation, that's where he comes to kill and destroy. Yeah. It sounds like easy and like lighthearted to say, but like it's heavy. And like when you wrote that of the devil is just coming after me, like that's heavy. I don't know if you guys have been through something very dramatic or hard or whatever in your life. But yeah, a lot of the times we think, oh, wow, what a coincidence, or that was bad. Like if you have any hope, faith, or chance in God, the devil's going to come try to kill and destroy and take that from you. But so even things like that, if you're not going to listen to what we have to say, like listen to what the Bible has to say. And yeah, these are things you need to take away. So the next question I want to ask is, when you feel anxious, what helps you the most?
Hold on, can I go back to what you said before this? Sorry, I just want to say something really quick. So before I got on stage, I was obviously really nervous, anxious, whatever was going on. And I had a lot of things distracting me, like getting the lobby set up, talking to my friends, doing this. Oh, my parents are walking in. What the heck is going on? Like all these other things. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was just getting distracted, and I wasn't focusing on the fact that I'm coming up here to speak to one student at least, to get to one student, because that's important, because we're a family. I don't care if I have a family of 100 or just one. If it's just me and one person, great. If it's me and more, awesome. I love it. I don't care. I let a lot of things distract me usually in life. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go over here and ignore it. But Matt even came up to me and was like, hey, like, focus on this. Like, focus on what you need to focus on, and don't let anything else distract you right now, because you need to focus on what your whole goal is tonight. And so that's just my little 2 cents.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, when we're on an assignment, we got to stick to it. Wow. You mean this, like, don't listen to me, like, this is one of your peers. This is why I knew, like, there was no one better to bring on this stage with me, because I was like, you guys need to hear from her more than you need to hear from me. So we focus on the heavy part, but when you feel anxious, what helps you the most?
It sounds really cheesy because you hear it all the time, but prayer. Like, prayer is one of the biggest things for me, and it only works when you believe it, when you put in effort, because there's also a lot of times where, like, my mom will be like, oh, pray about it, and I'm like, well, I don't want to now because you told me to. And, like, it's like when your mom's like, oh, go clean your room, but you already started cleaning it, and now you just stop cleaning your room, or you want to make it messier because you're just, like, upset about it, you know? But it truly does help. Like, anytime before I'm going on stage, I say a quick prayer. Anytime I'm in school and I'm like, oh, my goodness, I don't want to be here. There's all these people. They're staring at me. Whatever it is, I'm like, hey, God, I need you right now, and I just surrender it to him. So that's something that really gets to me, or like reading scripture. And one of the scriptures that helps me is 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. That's just one thing that, like, if I'm at home and I'm, like, really, really stressed or really, really, like, anxious about anything that's going on in this week or something, I, like, turn to that and I'm like, okay, just dwell on this, pray about it, whatever, focus on that, and focus all your stuff to God and surrender it to him.
No, that's so good. And one thing on prayer is that this is something, like, I think a lot of people struggle with. I struggle to have, I mean, that's just me being transparent, to have a consistent and deep prayer life. But one thing I've heard pastor after pastor say is prayer doesn't need to be our last resort. Our prayer needs to be our first response. So if you think of prayer like that, it changes the game. Mm-hmm. Because it's, instead of the, oh crap moment, it's the, oh, hey, I'm going to thank you and talk to you because everything's really good. Yeah. And I'm going to hold true to that because I know in the valley it's going to be dark. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Does anyone in here watch YouTube? I'm on YouTube way too much. You can ask my wife. She was, like, falling asleep the other night, and she's like, your YouTube videos are annoying. And then she, like, passed out. And I was like, huh. But I've had the honor to get to know this guy. You've probably seen one of his videos from me. His name's John Jorgensen. He's an amazing spoken word guy, pastor, preacher. But listen to this short clip. It's like a minute and change. But listen to what he says, and it's super powerful. This is during one of his sermons.
What do you do when you run into roadblocks? What do you do when it feels like life has you cornered? Well, I mean, you could pray Pastor Dan's prayer. It's a great prayer. You could pray your own prayer, but really what it comes down to is having the courage to say, I will surrender to the God who has me surrounded. Even when I feel like my anxiety has me cornered, I have to have the courage to say, I will surrender to the God who has me and that anxiety surrounded. Even when you feel like your circumstances or a relationship or a hard trip or schoolwork, whatever it is, even when you feel like it has you cornered, I will surrender to the God that has me surrounded. Are you willing to say that, not only today, but each and every day? Because I'm telling you, when you are willing to say that, when you are willing to live your life as though the God of the universe actually has you surrounded on every side, then you can move forward with confidence because you know God has gone before you. Then you can walk forward with confidence because you know God's got your back. You can move forward and you don't have to be afraid of the waters anymore because God is holding you on your right and on your left. He's got you on every side.
Yeah, what my friend John said is we were just digging and researching and praying, and we came across this, and I was like, there's really no better way of, besides the practical side of this and prayer, of looking at it of God's got this. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, whatever that is, like when have you surrendered that to God? I'm not saying it's going to miraculously cure you or heal you. He can. I've seen that done. I know people. But I also know people that they love Jesus so dearly, and they walk with him beautifully, but they also go see their counselor, their therapist. They have both. And that's one part, when you just write down, I will surrender to the God that has me surrounded. When I heard that, I was like, that's genius. And it's this complex thought of simplicity. Because when we think about that, of when we deal with these things, and like our graphics, our whole promo pack, mental hell, finding the hopes in the midst of hell, like that's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. Like when you surrender that, that's where you can find your hope.
Yeah.
So really lean in on that, lean in on these verses. And as we wrap up, and Matt talked about it a little bit last week, and we're not saying this legally at all. So don't, like, we got this film for a reason, y'all. But we brought up the idea or conversation about medication. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, do you take meds for anxiety?
Nope. I
there
don't.
You go. But I was like, Maren, what is your medication for anxiety?
So you're going to think I'm crazy. Just hear me out. Stay with me for a second. My medication is going to the chiropractor. And I know that sounds like, what the heck does your back have to do with anxiety? Like, what? Are you crazy? No, I'm not that crazy. Sometimes, yeah. So your spine needs to be aligned, and your nerves go to your brain. And you need a connection. Like, you have to have communication between the two for your body to properly function and do all these things. And so if one of those nerves is tweaked by one of those vertebrae, this is getting really technical, I'm sorry if I'm losing you. If one of those nerves can't correctly talk to the rest of your body, your body doesn't know what to do. Your brain knows all right? And so if your lower back is tweaked, how is your digestive system supposed to work? So how is your heart supposed to beat properly when you're having a panic attack because your brain can't, say, no, you're fine. Like, cool down, you're good, take a deep breath. Like, it's connected to the rest of your body. And so I go every Tuesday, and I've definitely noticed a difference for myself. Just being able, literally last Tuesday, I was in such a bad mood. You can ask my parents. I did not want to be out of the house that day. And I got I got adjusted. I did not get chiropractic. I got adjusted, and all of a sudden, I just started, smiling and laughing, and I was in a better mood, because I was like, okay, I can do this. I feel better. I don't have that pain, or I'm, relieved a little bit. So that's for me. And another thing is, taking some time to myself helps a lot, or just, taking the day off. I'm not saying that's the right decision for you. For me, it works. Take it on a Saturday. Do it on a Saturday. Do it after school. Take one of your days to just spend time alone and with God. And also make use of that day. Don't spend it watching Netflix and scrolling on TikTok the entire time, because that could just make things worse. But for me, I took Tuesday off. I sat and I was like, Mom, I had a really stressful weekend. I need to just cool down and regroup myself. And so I did that. But while I did that, I prepared for this Sunday, and I was watching a bunch of different sermons on anxiety to learn how I should kind of talk about it, or give me more ideas on what other people are saying. Or I read through some other scriptures and found other scriptures about anxiety, and I prayed, and I did other things, and I also spent time with myself and just relaxing and chilling and cleaning my room. Doing things to be productive really helped me personally. Yeah.
No, that's so good, because we all need, not everything we say is going to work for everyone in this room.
Yeah.
No, that's so good. We were talking with other people as getting ready for this, and some of these thoughts that maybe you were like, wow, they haven't said something that maybe has related to me. But we were talking to other people, and they said even the conversation of going to school or going home, whatever that situation is that makes you anxious or starts that anxiety or that panic attack, maybe you have a fear of being not loved, or you have a fear of being a disappointment. Those are very real things. Or one of the things we say here is welcome home, because we want you to know that you belong here. And if you go home, you go to school, and you don't feel like you belong, I'm sorry. Like that's insanely tough to try to process that alone, but don't do that. And I know it's easier said than done, but come here, talk to someone. If you feel like you don't even have someone to tell your day about, just come talk to one of us of just, hey, how was your day? Like, just to have a fun conversation, if that's just enough to get your mind off of it or whatever that is. But as we wrap up, there's a piece that you had shared. Do you want to share something in what that looked like in early on for you, like junior high?
Oh, yeah. In junior high, I had just moved here, so I really didn't feel like I had a place to belong. I felt really alone, and I felt like I was just bothering everyone I was around. And so I would fake being sick, it felt like every single week. Because I just didn't want to go. I was like, my teachers don't know who I am. They don't know I exist. No one around me knows I exist. They don't talk to me. They don't see me. And part of it was also because I didn't reach out to them. I didn't talk to them. So it's part on me, part on, it's just two pieces put together that didn't fit quite right. And so I felt really, really alone. And I felt isolated, which made it 10 times worse of, not having anyone to talk to about it. And I would try to talk to, my friends from Washington about it, but they can't really help because they're not here with me. And so for me, in junior high, it was really, really hard to be able to even just go to school. I was so scared.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. As we wrap up, we just kind of gathered a few, not simple, but a few questions that several people had. So I'll ask Maren, what are some coping mechanisms? Some people are probably wondering hey, how do I deal with this? Mm-hmm. In just a quick 30 seconds of what's the easy answer, and they can come hear more later to elaborate.
Yeah, for me, I usually try to think of what are 10 places I want to visit later on in my life? Or, what are 10 colors I can see? Or, that's that person's name. Whatever is just naming things or counting something. I don't know, just to get your mind off of what's going on and focus on something else.
Wow. So simple, but so good. Another one we got I think this one might be more than that one in this room, of how do I have a conversation to tell someone that I'm struggling with anxiety?
You have to tell someone you trust, and that can be scary even though you may trust them, because it's I don't know how they're going to react, whatever's going on, but you really just have to be vulnerable, which is terrifying, especially with anxiety, but it'll help in the long run of I'm going to talk to my mom, or I'm going to talk to my dad, or I'm going to talk to my pastor, or whoever, or just a friend even, someone that you're close with, or your sibling, or honestly start with telling your dog. I don't care. Practice. Whatever helps you. Tell someone you trust, and start it off with hey, I need to talk to you. There's this thing that's been going on, and I need to figure it out, and will you help me with it? So.
Yeah, no, I like the dog piece because I love dogs, but also I think we even talked about this of how do we prepare for today? Mm-hmm. But I was telling Maren, I'm even just talking it out. It could be someone that's not even really listening, but you're just getting it from the inside out, and it feels so much better, whatever that is. And the last kind of question is, how can I tell if I have anxiety?
So...
I know, real easy one to finish
Yeah,
with.
this one's great. I'm not a doctor. Don't completely listen to me. I don't have a PhD in anything. Sorry, disappointment. But if you do your research and you're oh wait, I kind of have that, or I have this feeling that doesn't seem like other people are having, maybe I should talk to someone about it. Maybe I should go to the doctor, or maybe I should try these coping mechanisms and see if they help, or try something new for me and see if that helps. Do your research. Don't just look at Wikipedia and be oh, yep, I have anxiety. No, look at multiple different resources. Find what you think. Gather your own information first before listening to your friends about it, and then be hey, Mom, can we go to the doctor? I need to do something about this.
No, that's good. Guys, that's the end of our conversation today. I know this topic is so hard to fit within 20, 30 minutes, but that's why we're having a 5-week discussion on mental health. This is not something we treat lightly at all. That's why, we chose one of our highest attended months here because we said we want everyone to get here for this conversation, whatever that is. So maybe last week is what God spoke to you. Maybe it was this week. Maybe it's the coming weeks after this. But it's a lot. But seriously, can we give it up for Maren? I wouldn't want to share this stage with anyone else. But it's seriously been an honor and a privilege. Like I love getting to do this, but getting to do ministry with you guys. But let's pray real quick, and then we're gonna jump in to one last worship song. Dear God, just thank you so much for everything that you've been doing here. This conversation is not